Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not two kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
First up, we have a GM who rage quit over the lack of interest in his NPCs, a player who turned out to be on a list, and a DM on a religious fantasy power trip. GM ends game after 5 sessions because we don't find the official NPCs interesting enough. Happened playing Das Schwarze Auge, a German RPG with massive lore, with acquaintances in real life. Already in the 3rd session, we faced a corrupt mage who I knew to be a rather famous NPC from the RPG's heyday, which I took as an Easter egg and didn't think much about it further. In the 4th session, we went to the High Priestess of the Goddess of Chivalry, whose church doubles as a knight order, also a famous NPC. I did play a knight myself and had some interactions with her on that basis, but after the game, the GM asked me why I didn't talk to her more. I said that I didn't think that I had much more to discuss with her, and he replied that she's basically the head of my religion, so there would be endless potential for conversation. I kind of agreed, but said that I didn't really see much of a point in having a long conversation with an NPC. He went, "Well, okay." And I guess in hindsight, I should have realized that he seemed agitated, but I didn't. Then in the 5th session, we met a kind of Viking explorer, yet again a very famous old NPC. But I also took that for an Easter egg, especially since he wasn't really part of the plot, so nobody in the group engaged with him. As we say we leave the location, the GM suddenly gets angry and yells at us, being mad, "Why don't we talk to the NPC more?" and literally just listing official adventurers and novels to us that he's in. We replied that we didn't play or read those, so he just doesn't mean anything to us. Not even all of us recognized the name. The GM then cussed at us that we weren't real Das Schwarze Auge players and disbanded the group. We left his place barely an hour after starting to play. Edit, clarification because it came up a few times. Except for the mage who was only revealed to us before we had to fight him, the NPCs were not particularly relevant to the plot. Especially the explorer seemed like a random encounter. That's why I thought that they were Easter eggs.
This to me just seems like a huge failure on the DM's part to not integrate NPCs into the story in a way that makes players want to speak to them. You can't just put an NPC there and expect players to be immediately enthralled by them. There needs to be a reason, like the players need information. There's got to be something to hook them in to talk to them, otherwise they're just not interesting.
Yeah, we also run into this kind of problem when we're talking about DMPCs, where the DMs will create an NPC that they are really into, and then the players are just kind of like, meh, and then the DM gets super mad and kind of offended. And I think the DM can sometimes get a little bit too attached to certain NPCs, and I think that's what happened in this case.
I mean, maybe the DM was just really keen to roleplay these characters, and that's fair enough. You just got to give the players a reason to interact. Although, to be fair, the players could also maybe have just engaged a bit more because it does seem like they are very meh about them. So this seems to be more on the fault of the DM for not giving them reason to engage, but also the players should probably make more of an effort. IRL players' true colours come out by Reddit user Celestina. I used to play D&D in a shop, which was great for meeting new people, but also leads to a bunch of RPG horror stories. In one campaign, there was a new couple to the store, recently moved to the area. A bit of an age gap between them, male 35 and female 19. They ended up in separate games, with the husband joining our table as our GM made space so they can join in. It was a setup where the world is being corrupted, and our efforts were slowing down the efforts or trying to create setbacks before the final battle against evil. So the DM repeatedly had dangerous situations, and even NPCs we have grown attached to getting killed by the darkness. So this player joins and picked a hunter. He joined when the campaign was first scouting the possible location of the enemy's base in the enemy's territory. Imagine a party essentially approaching the gates of Mordor from Lord of the Rings, escorting our wise and powerful mentor, who we might as well call Gandalf. The DM was setting up a moment we learn of how terrifying the enemy is, and a "You shall not pass!" moment where Gandalf sacrifices himself to save us. So when exploring, the hunter pretty much wants to not want to be involved with fighting the darkness at all. Bad fit for the party/theme, specifying he stays away to maximum range at all times, and during a troll attack, he was firing at disadvantage whilst my rogue was getting battered. He was quickly earning some bad rep as a player with the party with his antics, which leads to the horror moment and final straw.
I kind of get the feeling that the hunter was like too afraid to engage, and so he was like, I'm just gonna stay over here because I don't want to lose my character, instead of thinking about his strengths and how he can engage without incurring too much damage to himself.
I mean, there's inevitably a squishy character in the party, but you stay alive by working with the other players to defeat the enemy most effectively. That's the safest thing to do, because then you're all more likely to come out alive, including you. By hiding on the peripheries, he's just making it more likely the party will die or he'll get picked off somehow.
Exactly. And the fact that he is at a place where he's firing at disadvantage, that is also dangerous to the party because he's not getting hits in as often as he could be getting hits in. So he's not dealing as much damage as he could be dealing. So the BBEG or whatever is not ticking down his health at the rate that he should be.
We ended up at a cabin in the woods with a family there. There was something going on and there is a secret, and we needed to learn it from this family. As a party, we were trying to earn some goodwill with them and gain their trust. There was a lot of caginess, but it was proceeding like a difficult social encounter could be. Hunter again was not wanting to work with the party, so stuck to the edges. There was a DM statement about the little girl in the family knowing something of it while she was skirt peeking from behind her mother. The hunter decided this might be a good way to get information. He started using some honeycakes to lure this little girl out into the woods. Man in a white van with free candy here on the side style. He was giving such attention to the details of how he is going to lure her out, going quite remote with this little girl, etc. It was very surreal and spoken as if he had given this some real thought, far beyond what you would expect for such a play. The DM had the little girl share her information, but he seemed to continue interacting with her, to growing unease. The cleric player next to me finally spoke up and said, "Calm down now, Jimmy Savile," which kind of broke the tension in the atmosphere. We laughed and made jokes to diffuse the situation, and this allowed to snap back from what they were watching. Hunter didn't look too amused.
Yeah, eesh. That's an eesh. I felt uncomfortable just listening to that.
I understand you want to get information out of the little girl, she clearly knows something, and you need to win her trust, but don't lure her into the woods with candy. Don't do that. The DM had the mother realise her daughter was missing, get hysterical, and we as a party helped her out. We get to the girl and Hunter, and mother goes, "What are you doing with my child?" We expected some kind of apology or excuse from Hunter. We take the rep hit and he shares his information he's gathered with us. Except he doesn't do any of that. Hunter just goes deathly quiet and just walks away from the party, not even replying to the mother or any of us asking questions. Right to remain silent, style as if imaginary lawyer was giving him legal advice. His actions were coming off weird in character and with his IRL body language. We obviously asked him and prompted him to do some actions, but he didn't respond, as if not seeing the point, then started playing with his phone. Eric expressed his own discomfort with jokes referencing Hunter's character acting like a nut in this situation and how it was all very sketchy. Shortly after, Hunter's wife came to the table saying she had a headache and left with her. Given he was on his phone, we guessed he got uncomfortable with the situation and used her to bail out. And we did make a joke about that.
Yeah, he just had to go and make it all kinds of weird. He could have saved it. He could have saved himself, but instead he decides to be weird.
I get the feeling he was concerned about giving off a manly image and so didn't want to appear that he was running away and making it look like he was doing the quote-unquote noble thing and leaving because of his wife's health.
Exactly. I mean, if he was on his phone, I bet he was texting his wife and being like, "Get me out of this, please."
We did feel some guilt about chasing the player away, but we were collectively WTF about the experience, and given he had soured us to him with his in-game antics prior to this incident, by being a very poor team player, it was not a big loss for us, and the campaign continued. Hunter never turned up at the shop again after this, though his wife did return to her table. She left after a month or so. It was around a month after this when DM was chatting with the other table's DM about both the players. This was when we discovered she made a friend on the table, and they got speaking. One thing led to another, and the person on the other table found out some personal information about them. DM after this conversation sent a link in our Facebook Messenger group and suggested we check it out. The link was about Hunter in a newspaper article which was also online, and its coverage is about a city from the other side of the county. TLDR, we discovered he was on the SA Offender Registry for CSA in his role as a church youth pastor. It became clear he relocated across the country to escape his past. As you can imagine, with age difference, it also turned out his wife was one of those he met within his role and married when she grew older. Oh, I feel so... No, I just need to get there.
I feel like I need to take a bath after hearing this.
I'll get the soap, I need to wash my mouth out. Obviously, the cleric's first response to all this was, I called it, I knew it. It just wasn't right with what he was doing. And yeah, it all made perfect sense in hindsight. We were all very uncomfortable with his play in that scene. It was the very sickening realization afterwards that he knew what to do about luring the little girl NPC into the woods, and his actions around that, because most likely he had a very real practical experience of doing that stuff. Also, his response to being called out was actually advice he had previously received from his solicitor as well.
I think I need like one of those baths that you take after like having to wear a hazmat suit in a nuclear area.
Yeah, I definitely need to run through a car wash after this.
And, wash my mouth out with bleach.
You weren't the one reading it.
And my ears. Okay, wash my ears out with bleach. Oh my God. When we have problem players that do sketchy things like this, and we've read plenty of stories where this happens, the fact that they're in an RPG is just creepy because they're doing it to fulfill some sick fantasy. And I feel like this really confirms that because clearly he knew what he was doing and clearly he was trying to get away with about as much as he could. And then when everybody had a problem, he was like, oh, gotta go. Not gonna say anything. Bye.
I really appreciate one of the comments on this thread. Never ask a man his salary, a woman her age, or a youth pastor how he met his wife. It adds to the creep factor that his wife was one of the kids he taught to, preach to, whatever you want to call it, and now married. It's so creepy and grooming, and I just can't.
I'd like to say that this is the first time I've ever heard of something like this happening. Having come from that community, I actually know of a rather influential Christian couple who that was their situation. The husband groomed the wife when she was his student in youth group. So yeah, this happens way more often than it should. And that's the unfortunate reality. I think it's really disgusting, too, that he married one of the people that he did that to. That just adds an extra level of creep and ick. The Christians Dispel All Your Powers Without Rolling by Reddit user BlackHeartsDawn. First of all, excuse me if my English is not perfect, but I'm not a native English speaker. Well, this story happened a couple years ago. We were playing a Spanish RPG game called Itos, which is somewhat a sandbox game. In the story our DM created, we were children of gods who were losing influence in the world because Christians were trying to erase all of our religions. The party was composed of the sons of Tyre, god of war, the son of Hades, god of the underworld, Tyche, goddess of luck, and the two other players, but I don't quite remember their characters as they stopped playing shortly after we started the campaign. The son of Hades had the power to summon the undead, and the son of Tyre had the power to resist damage. The son of Tyche had the power to alter the results of dice rolls. The horror story started when we fought Christians for the first time. The DM narrated how the Christians chanted, then they just unsummoned all the undead from the son of Hades, removed all the damage resistant from the son of Tyre, and reduced the effectiveness of the son of Tyche's powers. No rolls, they just did it. But that's not all. They had more powers besides that. They could shoot rays of pure light, had healing magic, and were even good with weapons. The same situation repeated over and over again, and I witnessed how the son of Hades stopped upgrading his power to summon the undead and just brought a rifle, putting all his points into the skill used for shooting weapons.
Okay, so why are they even playing a fantasy? This is just literally cool. They're a bunch of dudes, buy a gun, shoot some people. Sounds like they're just RPGing Call of Duty at this point. We've added Jesus.
Yeah, it does really make you wonder where the DM was going with this game, because if you have like these enemies that your party is fighting, and basically none of their powers do anything, what are you trying to accomplish?
When your enemies can just immediately remove your powers or at least negate them, what's the point? They didn't have to roll for them, they just did it automatically. This isn't a game. It's just the DM enacting his fantasies on the game.
His religious fantasies.
Well, at least they're not the religious fantasies of the last guy.
That's true. That's I guess there's that. I mean, overall, the whole plot and premise just sounds like history in general. There's not a lot of fantasy going on there besides the powers. I don't understand this campaign at all. I don't understand the point of it. It just seemed like a pointless game for the people playing it and just a way for the DM to just, I don't know, have an ego trip, maybe?
Hey man,
Hey, what?
why didn't the skeleton cross the road?
I don't know. Why didn't he cross the road?
He didn't have the guts. And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.